friends. In this episode, I'm speaking with fellow Business for Unicorns coach Ben Pickard, and we're talking a little bit about how to discover what the right size is for your gym. How do you know when it's time to grow, and how do you know when you're just the right size? It's a fascinating conversation, and if you're trying to answer this question for yourself, I think you should keep listening. So let's dive in. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. And today I'm here with my fellow Unicorn Society Business for Unicorns coach, Ben Pickard. What's up, my friend?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so good to have you. We've been promising for our listeners to hear more and more from you these days. And so I'm glad we're keeping our promise and having you back more and more. I don't want to just keep you to myself. Well, before we dive into our topic today, which is going to be right sizing your business, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Kilo. I know we don't do a ton of ads and sponsorships on this podcast, but our friends at Kilo have created such an amazing platform that a lot of our Unicorn Society members are using. So we want to make sure that all of you know that it's out there. Ben, do you want to say just briefly a little bit about what Kilo does and why we like recommending it so much?
Yeah, well, at base level, they help gym owners with their marketing, get more leads, keep your clients longer, do marketing that aligns with your values and how you want to operate your gym. And I have not talked to a single Unicorn Society member who uses them who is unhappy. Everybody is singing their praises, which I know as a gym owner myself, I'm like at best 7 out of 10 happy with all of our vendors and software. Yeah, 100%. So the fact that, and honestly, nobody has said anything poorly is outstanding.
Yeah. And just puts everything in one place. From your website to your landing pages, to your text follow-up, to your email follow-up, it's all on one platform. So you can actually follow up with your leads in a way that, helps your conversion. And so who doesn't love that? If you want to learn more, go to usekilo.com, tell them we sent you for a special discount. And it's a great platform. It's a great platform. And for all the pieces of software we use, there's not as many I can say that's many positive things about, which is why we like pimping them on this podcast so much. Well, let's dive in. Our topic today is this, which is how do you know what the right size is for your business? And, and Ben was suggesting this one because I think we've both been through a journey of trying to figure out what does the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow look like in terms of what are we trying to build? What's the right size of the business that is going to kind of optimize for all the things we want to optimize? So can you just talk a little bit about how has your thinking about this changed over the years?
Yeah. So for a long time, the gross revenue of my business and my self-worth were like welded together, not even just tied together, like
completely fused.
Yes, completely fused. And then we had the, semi-apocalypse for a couple of years. And like many gyms, I can't say most, my gym got rocked. And we're still not at the same level of revenue that we were at before. But I'm way happier. And strangely, my take home isn't actually that drastically different. And obviously, for the keen listeners out there, you heard me say the gross revenue is tied to my self-worth when obviously, well, one, my self-worth shouldn't be driven by money. And two, revenue is meaningless without a margin. So, and this came to mind after talking to a handful of Unicorn Society members around like, how big should my business be? And the reality is I obviously can't say for sure what everybody's business would be, nor what their specifics should be. But I did have the really big realization for the last couple of years that like bigger is not always better. I worked personal stuff like way too much. I did not see my family enough. There was not enough work-life balance, quote unquote, for the people who are listening, those air quotes. And it's like, what do I actually want my business to be? And I got into fitness because I like working with people. I see fitness as a catalyst to change their life. I am aware that me being the go-to trainer is not super scalable. But there's something about like at what point is the sweet spot for me? Because going from a trainer working at a big box or wherever you worked before to an independent trainer is not really that big a leap. You do the same thing with payment processor and learn how to market. And even then you kind of just learn how to sell. And oftentimes getting referrals is not even that much of a sale. And then going from independent trainer to a couple other trainers is a bit more of a leap, but still not ridiculous because you're probably still at the gym 40 to 60 hours a week. But going from small, intimate team to like, hey, now we need a marketing person and we need an office manager to do operations and we maybe need a head coach and I need to beef up my finance stuff because I don't have as much time. That is a completely different skill set than at least I got into fitness for. My training needs to be around like leadership and accountability and having hard conversations and financial management and, like vetting my accountant to make sure they're good, to make sure we're having the appropriate tax savings. So the kind of painting the picture here, independent trainer who got into fitness because they want to help people change lives and running a team of, let's say like 4 to 5 or more, very different skill set. And if you want to go beyond that, like how MFF has done, like I can't speak for Mark, but you might be able to a little bit more than me. Like, I don't think Mark learns that much about fitness anymore. And my point with this is, like, if your journey was to be on the floor training clients and your business is getting bigger and bigger, at what point is like that not really what you got into it for?
Yeah. I think it's such a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, because I think so many of our listeners have probably had similar conversations with themselves, and if not actually voiced that out loud in conversation with others, right? Because so often I'll speak for myself when I say that early on in the business, we definitely had bigger is better mentality. And we were, we always talked about having many, many locations and, layers and layers of staff and team and, thousands of clients and then, giant impact. And that's not wrong, right? I'm not poo-pooing that as a vision. But part of it was that I didn't know at the time what my life would need to look like to achieve that. So I wanted that in a complete vacuum, right? I wanted that. My vision was for that in a complete vacuum without knowing really the nitty gritty of what it would take to get there, the personal or professional sacrifice, the ways you need to run the business to actually achieve multiple locations and thousands of members and, many, many millions or tens of millions in revenue. Like that was our vision at first. And I had that vision in spite of my experience. Right? And I think what we've learned over time is exactly what you shared, which is as we've grown and our role in the business has grown, that we learn what it takes to run the business. We learn that I was never the trainer, but in using your example, that I'm not just a trainer anymore. I'm a person who manages trainers. Okay, I'm not just a person who manages trainers anymore. I'm a person who manages marketers and salespeople and finance people. Okay, I'm not just that anymore. I'm also have to be a visionary and I have to be someone who looks at the big picture about my taxes. And so as our role changes, I think that vision also has to change. I think it has to be responsive to like all the data you take in as you navigate being a business owner.
Yeah.
Because if not, I'll speak for myself when I say, if not, then I think that my vision was just driven by the kind of social pressure in entrepreneurship and in America, I'll say, and I'm guessing in Canada too, that just bigger is better and more is more. And, if you want to own a business, you should be, wanting to have also a private jet. And like, it's just insane, but that's like kind of what we're fed every day, especially on the social medias, right? That's what entrepreneur looks like is the Lamborghini and the jet. But no one ever asks, well, what does it actually take to get those things? And why do I want those things in the first place? I'm actually fine with my super cheap Nissan Rogue. I don't need a Lamborghini, right? So talking about this, I think what this often boils down to is, as a business owner, what are you optimizing the growth of your business for? Right? Because you can optimize for gross revenue. You can optimize for profit. You can optimize for daily happiness. You can optimize for work-life balance. You can optimize for team experience and opportunities for the staff. You can optimize for, for total number of clients reached, right? There's a million ways to optimize. So how do you think about at this point, Ben, what you're optimizing your business for?
That's a really good question.
This is like therapy today.
Full transparency, I'm still kind of wrestling with this like a little bit, as Michael knows, because he's the one who's helping me through this.
How dare you not have it all figured out on this podcast?
Yeah, I'll take a selfie in front of a rented Lamborghini to balance it out. Honestly, I think what I'm optimizing for personally is lifestyle right now. And I want to be clear, dear listeners, if you follow me on Instagram, it is nothing remarkable, and I am not constantly in Bali or doing, renting Lamborghinis to take douchey pictures in front of them. Sorry. But it's
Didn't you also buy a new canoe though? So that's your
I do
version
have a really sweet
of a
canoe.
Lamborghini. Sorry, tangent.
But I lived in the gym basically. And anyone who listens to the Live the Bar podcast knows how COVID went for me. So check it out if you're interested. But I was there all the time. Like, I was almost never home for dinner, let alone sometimes not even putting my son to bed. And now we have family dinners more often than we don't. And especially with my wife, her blossoming real estate career is going really well. That means like I got to be around a bit to do shit like groceries and take Liam places and all these things. And it really clicked with me the last few years, which is the piece I'm still kind of wrestling with, where it's like, I probably could be a bit more successful if we want to measure that in dollars. Like, absolutely could be if I was willing to do more and or spend more. But there's a certain point for me where I'm like, things are pretty good. And don't get me wrong, there's months where I'm like, damn, I wish that paycheck was like 10% more, or I wish I had this, or wish I had that, or you definitely get the FOMO from all the people that still market to me as a gym owner on social media. But again, back to your original question, like, it's lifestyle. I like being home for dinner. I like actually working a semi 9 to 5 right now. I like that we can go ski lessons with Liam on the weekend, and I'm not like, oh, I booked 2 consultations and all the lead follow up. And I think the other piece is I'm also kind of optimizing for my skill. And for anyone who's read the E-Myth, they know that you're kind of a technician, manager, visionary. I learned the hard way I'm not a good manager. Or at least I don't think I am. I'm a good technician. I can coach the shit out of people with fitness. I can coach the shit out of them when it comes to, the mindset related to business or fitness. And I really like the visionary and the planning stuff, as you well know, Michael. But when it comes to like the day-to-day management, that was a piece that like I just felt friction all the time. So that's why I've hired my wonderful GM.
Yeah, in part that's also because that's the job.
Yes, true.
Right. In part that's it. You weren't doing anything wrong. It's just being a manager is inherently managing friction.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And I have friends who are great managers, and they love talking about their team and all the things that are going on. And don't get me wrong, I love my team and they do such great work. And there's stuff from like, I really don't want to hold anyone accountable to that thing. So I'm trying to figure out what are my strengths and then how do I play to them and let the business fall online? Because my hunch is most gyms are probably not going to be multi-million-dollar empires, but we can probably change the lives of 100 to 150 clients in our community. If we do things right, really make a really good living doing that from a financial and wealth standpoint. And, more importantly, like really make a difference in our communities, which is what I got in business for this for. And the further I got away from the training floor, the more I realized like, yeah, we're making more revenue, but our margin is actually just shrinking a little bit as we go. So like, why are we doing all this extra work? Plus I was like, this isn't what I want to fucking do anyways. Why am I having problems in the business that I created? Like, it's my business. I can do it differently.
Yeah. Well said, my friends. I think, the thing I really want listeners to take away from this conversation so far is to normalize the idea that you can optimize the growth of your business for something other than dollars, right? And that's not to say optimizing for dollars is wrong, right? If y'all out there want your business to be worth, 8 figures, please go do that, right? For sure. And know that you're going to be sacrificing other things in your life sometimes. Lifestyle, sleep, work-life balance, you name it, could be compromised. And that's a trade-off we make, right? Because we can't optimize for everything all at once. But I think just normalizing the idea that you can optimize for lifestyle. Success can look like being home for dinner. Success can look like getting in that new canoe at least once a month, right? Or you also ride motorcycle. It can also be like getting on my motorcycle once a month, right? Success can also look like I just serve the most number of clients. And I might offer cheaper residence or cheaper rates or sliding scale rates for people who can't afford my normal ones because I just want to serve more people. Cool. You can also optimize for your team's experience and really create a ladder for them to climb and pay them really well so they stay for a long time. There's so many ways to optimize the business, but the default is I'm optimizing for revenue / profit. And so I think it's a great takeaway from this conversation. Let me ask this, Ben. I'm going to ask you to put your coaching hat on for a second. For listeners who are like, yeah, I do want to get clear about this for myself. Like, I want to grow the business. I definitely need to make more money, but I really want to get clear on what's the right size of this business for me. How do you, what are some tips you have for how they can go about figuring that out for themselves?
Yeah, what is the right size for listeners?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm going to answer this partially with a quick little story. So I had a mentor, like,
Great.
probably 2 months into starting my business. This is like spring of 2015. And the first thing he did was be like, hey, make a business plan. And this wasn't the typical like SWOT analysis. And I've seen some that are like 30 pages. It was like, I'm just going to run some numbers in a spreadsheet. What do I think I need to charge? How many clients do I think I need to make? Like, let's ballpark some expenses by like Googling real estate or rent in the area. And then I kind of didn't use that again. Like, I didn't reference it every month. Like, are we on track for the plan? But holy shit, did that come true in way more ways than I expected. And it's totally like plans never do, but planning always does. But I think the key for my business being as successful as it is honestly, step one is just know your friggin' numbers. If you're someone who, is not running a version of Profit First, do that. If you're not looking at your profit and losses regularly, do that. What's helped me a lot is being able to reflect back on past years to be like, what's working and not working. Because it's really easy to get caught up in like the whirlwind of the day to day and forget about the long-term picture. So I think by knowing where you've come and having a plan for where you want to go, you can start to see where does this fit. And then you can start to compare it to like, well, how many sessions do I think I need for that many people? And how many trainers do I think I need for that many sessions? Knowing that you probably don't want your trainers to do like 40 sessions a week or they're going to burn out, potentially die. Then you'd be like, what other things might be involved in that? And then, I mean, for me, what's been really valuable is the ongoing soul searching of like, what's the type of work I like to do? And to my dismay, the type of work I really like to do is also the least scalable, which is working with the people. So I'm working on a few things, which I'm happy to share my learns or successes down the road on. But it's kind of a combination of like, as you said, what am I optimizing for? What's currently going on? And is that aligning with where I actually want to go? And to your point about optimizing for revenue, like my gym could probably be bigger if I quadrupled my marketing budget, hired more people. But like a lot of startups, I don't want to be hoping it goes really well for like 3 years. I'm happy to do good work now and have a decent or a good paycheck now.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I love the example of your own story. I think, what I'm hearing in that is that if you want to get clear on, what the right size is for your business, you have to have some good data at your fingertips, right? Some good financial data, some good key metrics. You can see what have you been doing so far and what about that is working or not working. And what I mean by that is if we're spending money on marketing, is it getting people in the door? If we're hiring staff, do we have enough money left over for profit? You need some access to some basic information. How much is it? What's my, cost per lead?
Yeah.
What's my, you get the idea. But I think that the idea that you're sharing here is like, have good systems in place to know what the data is that helps you understand what could your business even be, right? Because looking at the finances and the key metrics, right, are all really a great roadmap for what you've done. And then from there, you can kind of get more clear about where you want to be. Did I hear that right? Is that really a good takeaway from what you shared?
Absolutely. Once you have that information, you can start to make some accurate projections. And as we know, plans don't work, but planning always does.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Because then you have choices. Once you know where you are, and you can really, get more nuanced about deciding where you want to be. And I think just being open to the fact that that changes over time, right? The fact that in this chapter of your life right now, you are optimizing for, like you said, lifestyle, et cetera, and what your skills are. Because that's the second piece of that you shared, which I think is also really important, which is, knowing that what you want to be working on any given day, month, week, year, right? The skill set that you feel kind of called to like embody in any given moment might also change. There's people listening to this right now, like, I'm always going to be coaching. I want to be on the coaching floor forever. That's where my heart is. That's what I love doing. I get up out of bed and I can't wait to coach. And who knows, in a few years, you might be like, yeah, actually, I could coach a little, less. I actually don't mind managing people. I want to hire and onboard and train really great coaches. I want to be a coach mentor. Who knows? A few years from then, you can learn a little about. I just did an interview earlier today with James Pratt, who's a Unicorn Study member, whose podcasts I think will be coming out before this one, so it might already be out. And he was saying exactly the same thing. He was like, I've been doing sales for the last few years, and now I'm managing other people who do sales. I never thought that would be me, right? And so I think keeping the door open for yourself as an owner to know that you can learn new skill sets over time. And what you might want to be optimizing for is your own personal growth and the kind of work that you love doing in any given moment. I think that's really kind of wise to think about. So I appreciate you sharing that, Ben. Yeah. What else about this topic? What haven't we covered yet? I know we got a few more minutes left. What else would you say about this that we didn't touch on?
A couple kind of experience shares, I guess, that I don't know if I can back up with hard data. But the first one is even pre-COVID, I mean, me and you talked about this a fair amount too, is like I kind of felt like I just kept bumping up against the ceiling. And I could do the math for people not via audio. But there comes a point where your marketing has to continue to grow exponentially in order to balance out retention, because your retention is not going to be 100%. So you're going to have to like market your loss. And for easy math, if your retention is 96%, so your churn or attrition is 4%, and you have 100 clients, you only lose 4 people a month. But let's say your business gets to 300 clients. Now you need 12 clients a month, assuming you can even keep the same retention, which I wouldn't be surprised if it dropped a little bit. Well, at which point, how many trials do you need for that? How many consults do you need for that? How many, all of a sudden you're needing
and that's just not to shrink.
Yeah, that's just not to shrink. You might be needing, 20 leads a week. And I know that isn't the biggest number in the world, but you're probably not going to get that just from referrals. So all of a sudden you have to have the skill set to do the extra marketing or the funds to hire the right people. And my point with this, as much as I want to math it out for everybody, is I just kept kind of hitting that ceiling. And since COVID, it's lowered a little bit, but it's like a really nice sweet spot. It feels, instead of feeling like we have to be redlining all the time in order to grow, it's not all easy by any stretch, but it's like, oh, things are going the right direction. This is working. When that client has that issue, we have the capacity to hop on a quick call with them and see how we can resolve it within 24 hours rather than being like, oh, can we talk at 8 p.m. 3 Tuesdays from now? And also a little bit, it's just smoother. And I know there is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, how could you summarize what you've done to kind of protect yourself from hitting your head on the ceiling? What have you done that's different now, where you feel like you're not bumping your head against that client ceiling anymore?
Well, the first piece is I've got myself out of some of the day-to-day operations that need to happen. Our office manager is rock solid. I've hired a general manager who handles all the stuff that I need her to. She's doing exceptionally well. But then we've also just adjusted how we do our quarterly planning and projections. So for everyone who doesn't know, the Unicorn Society do quarterly planning with all of our members. We always do that based on the goals for the year. Like many people, I imagine my goals were always just a little bit or a lot too aggressive. And now we're looking at small incremental growth based on what are we willing to put in order to what we're going to get out. Because again, if you're not willing to go hire a very expensive marketing firm to really max out your gym super quick, it's like, how do you mentally come to terms with the speed of growth that is great for you? And I also think there's something to Dunbar's number. After the 130, 140, 150-ish people, now you basically need government in order to manage them. And that becomes that to me is kind of the cusp of a much more complicated business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, my friend. I think it's worth considering that, that you sometimes, to feel good about where you at, you need to redefine the goalpost, right? Because, if you're only been getting 2 or 3 leads a week and your goal requires you to get 20, 30 a week, you really have to think, exponentially different about your strategies to make those kind of leaps. And it can really feel like hitting your head against the wall if you're continuously not achieving your goals. And so thinking more realistically about what you can achieve given your current skills and capacity, I think that's a great way to not be burnt out and be more realistic about what you can achieve. Because you got to have some wins. If you're not getting any wins on the board, it can be really defeating over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's leave it there. Let's wrap it up. Maybe I'll ask you to leave them with one bit of hope when it comes to figuring out the right size for your business. What's the kind of optimistic view of how that goes for most people?
Well, what really worked for me is when I reran the math on it, and with the appropriate pricing and metrics in place, like retention and marketing, I realized I really don't need that many clients in order to make a really positive difference in their lives and have a really solid business. It just wasn't as many as I thought it was, which to me was freeing. I'm like, oh. And the question, maybe I can leave with a question here, is like, what would it look like if you took half of your marketing efforts and put that into taking care of your best clients? And what if you could do that for the right number? Like, they might never leave.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Yeah, we'll leave you with that question of like, what if you could, refocus your marketing dollars to just keep your best clients longer? Great question. And I'm going to restate the one I said earlier is I think everyone would benefit from getting really clear on what are you optimizing for? What are you optimizing the growth of your gym for right now? And, and I know that's going to be a moving target. I think it's useful to just call out what matters the most to you. How are you defining success in the growth of your business now, knowing that it will change over time? And if by default you're not thinking about it, by default you're probably thinking it's money. By default you're thinking that success equals gross revenue or profit. And it's not wrong, but I think we can probably be more thoughtful about it if we really are looking to long-term find the right size for our business. Yeah. Well, great conversation. I really appreciate it. I know this is not a kind of a typical one for a podcast because we kind of just like sharing our thoughts in real time. But I hope that it was valuable, listeners. Ben, if people want to reach out and learn more about working with you and Business for Unicorns or more about your gyms, where do they
my
find
email is ben@businessforunicorns.com. You can also create me on Instagram. It's Benjamin__ 2 underscores Pickard, Pickard.
Wow.
And then you're welcome to check out my gym. It's www.lsfit.ca. Shoot me an email or add me on Instagram if you want to chat and have any questions.
Good. I love that you include the www. Really.
My inner old man. Ourselves. I'm not that old, world, but I identify as a 55-year-old.
I love it. Yeah. Listeners, if you love this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review everywhere you listen. It really helps us find new listeners just like you. And email me too, michael@businessforunicorns.com, and let me know if you who you want me to talk to next or what you want me to talk about. But I enjoy you all. Thanks so much for doing this, Ben. And I'll see you on the next one.